This is Robert with Capital Retail. We're going to go over the tenant and landlord checklist for commercial leases. I've listed here 11 questions at a minimum that a landlord's attorney is going to ask so they can draft a lease. Both the landlord and tenant are going to need to know the answers to these questions. Check them out here. When is the rent commencement date? This seems like an easy question that oftentimes is actually hard to answer. The reason is because it's sometimes predicated on other dates that have yet to be defined, such as the delivery of the premises to the tenant. So understand all the terms regarding rent dates. Following up on the rent commencement date, there is how long is the lease term? When does it end? Specifically, know when the lease starts, know when it ends, talk to the landlord, get a confirmation, have questions, ask. When does the tenant need to notify the landlord of its right to exercise its option to renew? Tenants should understand this date because if they miss it, potentially the landlord may not grant the option because they've missed the period of notification to the landlord of their right to exercise the option. If a tenant goes bad and there's a guarantor on the lease, then that guarantor is responsible. Basically, they're guaranteeing the payment of this lease. So the tenant and landlord should know their credit before they put forth their name and understand that this is the responsibility of the guarantor. There's a number of services out there. This one by TransUnion. It's real simple. You just email the guarantor a link. They go through an online credit application, and then the landlord should check to see if the tenant is listed in good standing by the state that they are formed in. Tenant's entity needs to file annually with the state. Forgetting to file the annual report is the most commonly missed and often results in the not good standing status. States feast on these late fees. An example of looking up a business is here in DC. Just go to business.dc.gov. You can look up any business to see if their status is in good standing. Every state has a website to look up businesses to check the status. Here's the State Corporation Commission for Virginia. Having the tenant space identified in a site plan is sometimes missed by landlords. It's often a good idea to have it as an exhibit to the lease. This helps both the tenant and the landlord when it comes down to permitting and other issues when looking back at leases years later. There are a lot of dates in a lease, not just the lease commencement date, but rent commencement date, delivery of possession to the tenant, lease termination date. All these things should be calculated. Go to an online date calculator. We use this one a lot. It's an easy way to figure out the dates.